International renown is actually published, if you know what I mean, from a pub. Sandy Bell's Bar in Edinburgh has for the last 10 years been producing Scotland's only national folk magazine, the Sandy Bell's Broadsheet. And this month it's changing its management and moving through to the more sober atmosphere of the west of Scotland, if you know what I mean. Alistair Moffat has spent many a long evenings of hard work researching this.
As John Barrow walks up Edinburgh's Forest Road, he's on his way to his local pub, Sandy Bell's Bar. But John Barrow hasn't just dropped in for a pint. He's come to open his post, only one of his duties as an editor of Scotland's only national folk magazine, the Sandy Bell's Broadsheet. All that Scottish pubs usually produce are crates of empties. So how has it come about that Sandy Bell's regulars do more than just down their pints? And they produce a fortnightly magazine of international renown, named after a man called Sandy Bell.
Sandy Bell was a semi-mythological character. I say semi because he actually existed, except he wasn't actually called Sandy Bell. His name was Sandy Porter, and he was a relative of the Bell family that actually had this pub when it was a privately owned bar. And Sandy was brought back from Australia to serve behind the bar here, and hence the name. The pub itself was a kind of command post of the revival, as you might say. It was in here at the time of the old people's festivals that folk used to forgather. Jeannie Robertson sang in here, Jimmy Macbeth sang in here, and so it just naturally developed that Sandy's was a kind of centre of the whole thing. And in course of time, human beings, what they are, they need print. Song and the oral tradition are all very well, but we are all literate, and so people actually need things written down, you know. So eventually, Sandy Bell's Broadsheet came into existence.
In Sundays, they peel off the bells. They rosin the stools and they polish the fiddle that plays at the day for the night's return to the song of the story of Sandy Bell's man. Not comfortable, but full of creature comforts. People putting places in position.
That was Hayden Murphy, Sandy Bell's resident bard and a regular contributor to the Broadsheet, whose circulation spreads all over the world. The three editors of the Broadsheet are John Barrow, a Geordie who runs the Edinburgh Folk Festival, and Ian Green, a sergeant in the Edinburgh Police Force, and Kenny Thompson, a sub-editor with one of Scotland's daily papers.
The basis of the thing was just hoping that people would send us articles that they felt moved to write on our behalf. And that was really the solid core of the thing, and that really didn't change very much at all.
We had to resort to phoning up people from time to time to get information from them. This was one of the difficult things, actually, trying to get information in. Plenty of people were prepared to write reviews and reports on clubs, but to try and get information in about gigs that were run in clubs was one of the most extremely difficult things we found.
Every second Monday night, the three editors meet in John Barrow's house to begin the all-night task of putting the broadsheet together. Taking the occasional refreshment seems to ease Ian Green's literary flow, and they generally put the broadsheet to bed just before the dawn breaks. But during the day, Sandy Bell's Bar acts as the editorial headquarters.
All the mail came in here. We used it as a post-restaurant. The staff were extremely supportive towards us. The brewery was able to put some money up about 5 or 6 years ago, and we made a record featuring artists who were quite well known in the folk scene and who regularly came into here. It was a very, very important focal point. It's an internationally known pub.
There was a time when everybody in the folk scene sort of gathered here if they were passing through Edinburgh, and it was a great source of information of all sorts.
And now here's Bill Hill to commemorate the retirement of the 3 editors of the Sandy Bells Broadsheet, or as it's known, the SBB.
3 wise men stood in a public bar, listening to music and enjoying a jar, while the fiddlers fiddled and the whistlers blew. They were at a loss for something they could do. La, 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 la. So they pulled their thoughts and they said we 3 could start a publication called the SBB. Yes, they pulled their thoughts and they said we 3 could start a publication called the SBB.
It's kept me informed in what's been happening in Edinburgh, and it's the first thing I do when I come back home after a tour. I buy the broadsheet.
Well, it's national and international. We have, we had subscribers up and down the breadth of Britain, as far afield as the West Indies, Australia, South Africa, throughout Europe.
But yeah, there's been some justified criticism of the McCalmans, and you just got to take it because it's there. Someone's thought that, whether it's wee Fred McGlumfer from the end of the bar who's just been at the concert and submitted his criticism to John or Ian or Ken, and he submitted it in good faith, and then we read it and think, my God, this is going to Australia and Denmark and Canada, we're finished. Because Fred McGlumfer at the end of the bar doesn't like us. Then we meet Fred the next day and says, can we buy you a pint, Fred? Now, what didn't you like about it?
What will you remember from the last 10 years, John, especially?
Bottles of grouse.
That as well.
Rapidly emptying bottles of grouse. Yeah.
Well, I suppose some very nice things that have been said about the broadsheet in the past. Generally speaking, some very good crack. 1 or 2 hard times, I suppose. When we said, as Kenny said earlier, 1 or 2 things we may have regretted saying, but at the same time, I think things that we thought needed saying.
One of the most gratifying things was that when we were in financial shtuck with people not paying our bills, a lot of the established folk artists rallied round behind us, and we staged benefit nights for the broadsheet. And we're talking about big names in the Scottish folk scene, like Ian McIntosh, Hamish Inlack, Mike Burns, various other people, and they put on free nights, and the proceeds helped us to balance the books.
So the broadsheet flourished and its stature grew, even though the editorial board was cut to 2. The reviews quite often tempted the fates, and they always warned about the lack of diary dates. But they laboured on till eventually it was time to close the curtain on the SBB. Yes, they laboured on till eventually it was time to close the curtain on the SBB. Now Ken works on the paper near the Anderson Quay, and Dean's a leading light in the constabulary. John's a festival director working day and night, seeking PA and sponsorship to ease his plight.
I won't sing to that.
And they've shanghaied a man called Jack Foley to take on the running of the SBB. We commend his gross insanity to be the sole shareholder in the SBB.
So finally, why are you giving up?
Time. Pressure to work, basically.
Yeah, time is important, but I also think that after 10 years, I think it needs someone with a fresh look at the whole thing.
Yeah.
If you had one piece of advice to give Jack Foley, the new editor, what would it be?
Give it up now.
It's a thankless task, but at the end of it, you might not think that. But while it's going on, it's...
He's a very energetic type, and he'll need all his energy to make it work, and I'm sure he will.
How do you react to that?
Well, it's beginning to feel like that sometimes, Alistair, but I'm beginning to get into a routine more, and I expect it will get easier.
Do you think it's important that the broadsheet's now going to move away from Sandy Bell's pub?
Well, things develop, things move on. And I suppose it's no bad thing in a way that a new lease of life should have a new lease of place. And that one character should move out and another character should move in. This is a rule and law of life, and who are we to gibbet it? Though, mind you, I think that the new broadsheet will still be tethered fairly firmly to the country of its origin.
The format itself has proved successful for 10 years, so why change a winning team? There are one or two ideas, obviously, for the future, but introduce them very gradually, basically tidying up at the moment. I'm going to miss Sandy Bells as a base, yeah. It's not quite the same, but it's as near as we can get, given the other three's decision to pull out. The magazine itself will continue to cover the whole of Scotland. Thank you very much.
Are you going to do it for 10 years like the others?
The way I'm feeling at the moment, I won't do it for another 10 minutes. But I'll try my best, yeah, to do it for 10 years.
Hooch is now pronounced hooch. Good luck, Sandy Bell. Tonight's tail ender. Some mysterious